When designing in CAD, you're going to make a mistake. So in this lesson, I'm going to show you how to modify your 3D drawings without having to start over. So let the lesson begin. Now that we have a good 3D object from our previous lesson of our washer, let's talk about how we can edit or modify. Every once in a while, things change about our designs and we have to react appropriately. Let's come over here to the whiteboard to go over an outline of our lesson. Now, the first thing we're going to talk about is how to edit our sketch. In previous lessons, we talked about parametric design. That's the ability to make those modifications and they carry all the way through to the 3D object. We're going to see that in CAD here today. Now, the next one we're going to talk about is the modify tools. There was modified tools in the sketch area. There's also additionally modified tools in the CAD 3D object area that allow us to make some changes that we don't need to go to the sketch for. The last thing we're going to talk about is key terminology, timeline. It's a new key term that we're going to have here. And the timeline is essentially a bar at the bottom of our screen that is a step-by-step process of how we got to where we are within the CAD. It's a great place for us to edit that sketch or the extrusions. So let's jump in here to CAD to start going over it all. Now that we see that 3D object here, we can go back up and we can show our sketch. Now, an easy way to modify our sketch is just by simply right-clicking up here in the tree and clicking on Edit Sketch. Additionally though, going with our key term, is in the bottom left-hand corner is the start of our timeline. And you can see here we have our sketch as well and our extrusion here. We can also right-click here in the timeline and Edit Sketch. This pops us back into our sketch profile. If we go to the timeline area, you can see that our extrusion process as well as our component is grayed out. This is why you don't see them anymore. It essentially rewinds us back to the point in time that we created the sketch. Now, with parametric design, this allows us to make changes to our drawings that we can see propagate all the way to 3D. Say this key here, for instance, we can change how deep that key is by simply changing, by double clicking here and changing our dimension, say to 25 millimeters. We can see that key is now shrunk down. If we finish our sketch, we can see that the 3D also changed directly with it. That's that parametric design working perfectly. That goes all the way back to that robust sketch that we wanted to have at the beginning so that we can make those changes without everything failing. Now, that's a really quick and easy way to modify your part, is just going back to the original sketch that created it. If we want to add features, say like radius corners or rounded corners, we can do those with the modify tool. Now, modify is a drop-down menu that's up in the ribbon at the very top. If we drop that down, we can see a ton of different options. We're going to go over a handful today, but a great way to look through them all is reading the tooltip that pops up. Like here on the shell, we can see that it offsets the walls of the solid body to create a shell. Now, fillet or radius on the corners, we can click that and it pops up a new window here, just like the extrusion process. Zooming in, we can click on individual lines that we want to radius or add fillets to, and we can type in a dimension like 2 millimeters. This puts a 2 millimeter radius on that corner, and I can click OK. One important thing is that as we add these kind of features, if we come down to the timeline at the very bottom, we can see that we added a new step within our timeline, which is that fillet. Again, anything down here is a great place for us to edit. If I want to change that fillet, I can come in here, edit feature by right-clicking on it, and now change it to 3 millimeters, which we can see take effect. Going back up to the modify area, let's go over a couple more features that I like to use a lot. Chamfer is another good one. Chamfer essentially adds a straight line edge, just like the fillet does, but it's now a straight line instead of a radius. We can go ahead and put 2 millimeters as well in here, and we can see that take effect by doing a 45 edge. There's other options in here which we can do equal distance, different distances and angles to customize it even further. One last one that I want to go over, which is what we touched on briefly a second ago, is shell. So if we drop that menu down, shell. Shell is a really cool one that we use in the 3D world, especially in CNC, where it essentially creates a pocket. This is just as it sounds. If we click on a face on this one, we can add a thickness, say, of 1 millimeter. It creates a 1 millimeter outline of that object essentially creating a pocket. Now, we've talked about how there's more than one way to skin a cat in previous episodes. What we can talk about on this one is that I could create a sketch and do a cut extrude to get that same effect. But for right now, shells gets us there a lot faster. Now, the last thing we can see here is at the very bottom within our timeline, at any given point, I can step backwards and forwards showing those. This is a great way that if something does break, you can step backwards to the point where everything was good and slowly work back forward, fixing any of the mistakes that could have, be taking effect. Now that we have a good grasp of how to edit and modify our parts, in the next lesson, we're going to talk about how to add sketches that we can use to add or subtract from our 3D object. So we'll see you on that one.